Okay, here's a note that I got from a student. I'm not going to read the student's name because I didn't ask permission for this, but here it is on my laptop. I'm just going to read it to you. I'm sending this message late at night. Please forgive me if it sounds rushed. I'm a gigging semi-professional singer and frontman with a band for 25 years. Who hopes to go full-time very soon. To be candid, I've gotten to the point of near despair with nearly 3 years of singing lessons. Despite the odd eureka moment, I don't feel I've made any substantial improvements. Perhaps I've already reached my optimal range and tone. Perhaps I'm not anatomically made to sing up to the high tenor high C. I can't seem to access this fabled head voice or mixed voice. I have a fairly powerful chest voice up to the F sharp 4, and through straining I've been known to hit a B flat 4, also nice, and also a nice but impractical falsetto. And for years I believed that it was my limit. So watching your videos has given me renewed hope, and I'm really hoping that you can help me finally to find freedom in my voice after decades of accepting of what I was born with. Now this is really this is not an uncommon letter. This is quite a common experience, and I found this particularly to be true with singers who are really good singers, but they're so good that they can pull the chest voice pretty high. In this case, this student can pull he has pulled the chest voice up to the high B flat, and so or was it the high B? Anyway, the high B flat, which is almost to the high C. That's a long ways to pull up chest voice, and it can become very stressful. And so I wanted to, in relationship to this letter, let me read another one that I got. This is another student. I'm not a music graduate, but I've got 18 years of professional experience, ever since I was 17 years old, singing in rock bands, weddings, and events. In 2010, he was selected by the biggest theme park in his area to sing and perform in musicals at the park, where he stayed for a year. Vocal strengths, he said, I have good vocal extension, strong high notes, tuning, and vibrato. Well, let me say that his strong high notes in the past have been very strong chest voice high notes. Vocal weaknesses. When I sing, I cannot consistently sustain all the phrases of the song correctly, especially the fast lines. In my speech level production, my voice falls out of the good place. While holding a vowel, for example, I start in the right place, but suddenly my voice breaks. The voice keeps swinging, wobbling, and so forth. So his priority that he wanted to address was consistency. There's no shaking. In the middle register of my voice, that's in the first bridge. To take a equal voice throughout my range with ease. And here's another letter from a different student. This morning I felt my voice more connected. Oh no, this is him. This is continuing. This morning, this was written to me after we'd had a lesson. I felt my voice more fully connected, soft, and full-bodied. It pleased me a lot. It seemed that my head voice could go down to the lower notes of my vocal range, which could only be reached using a chest voice. It was as if I had a single voice, a single register, no breaks, no changes in quality of sound. By the end of the day, around 6 p.m., I could no longer reproduce the same experience. The voice began to fail, to break in the first bridge, and changed. The sound quality became sharper with a loud, heavy chest voice, and my head voice was weak and airy. So that's the point that I want to talk about. When you're a really good singer, most of the time, many of the great singers that I've worked with are really good, and they're so good they can pull the chest voice quite high and have it be very. They can pull the chest voice high and have it sound really good. The only problem is that when their voice gets tired, then it starts to crack and break. And so they can sing on an evening pulling their chest voice up, and then the next day they're hoarse, or that night they're hoarse. They feel the strain and stress. And if you do 2 or 3 of these a week, then things start getting concerning because the voice isn't recovering as fast and so forth. And if that continues on, then singers get into trouble. They start developing a wobble, or they can't pull the chest voice as high and so forth. So here's the big question: how then do we get power in our voice correctly? How do we get power in the voice with the? How do we get singing power in your voice without having to pull the chest voice? And the answer is, I think there's several different ways. But consistently what I'm seeing as a teacher is that it usually doesn't happen in the first lesson. Often doesn't happen in the first lesson. And it might take several lessons. And the thing that, especially a good singer, as someone's been singing a long time in a particular way, it's very difficult to immediately break this habit. To break the habit of pulling chest, to break the habit of the way we've been singing all of our lives, and all of a sudden it's not working, and so we tend to expect that we can go into a teacher and they'll say, here's how to do it, and you do it, and you go and you sing that way for the rest of your life. It's just not that easy to break bad habits, especially when they've served you quite well. And so how do we deal with that? First of all, let me show you the approach that I think works. I'm going to talk about 2 approaches today. Number 1 is taking the very strong, the very powerful voice, chest voice, and trying to get it more in a mix immediately. So if, let's just say, you're saying, and you could probably do it a lot better than I can, because I don't have a real gift for that, pulling the chest voice higher. And I've got some friends in musical theater that can do it really, really well. They can pull their chest voice up, and it's just like amazing. The only problem is that it can break and crack, and they can wear their voices out. And that's the problem. Now, so let's suppose case number 1 is that you've been singing a long time and you're really good at pulling your chest voice. So what we want to do is narrow the vowel. So let's just say I'm singing I'm going to sing just a portion of Why God, why this face, why this beauty in this place? Well, that's from Miss Saigon, and what we want to try and do is narrow the vowel so that we can get some mix going without pulling the chest. Why? So I have to go from why, from that wide open Y to a little more narrow. Why God, why this place? So it's a little bit different than why God, why this place? Now, some people might prefer that, but let me tell you, you can't take it up very high. Why God, and keep doing that without it cracking and without really straining the voice. So we want to find that more narrow place of, instead of why God, why this place? So there's a little bit of narrowing of the vowel. That's one approach to trying to keep the power, but not changing anything, not taking some of the stress out of, not doing anything else, but just narrowing the vowel. Now, that's a fast way to address chest, pulling chest. And it's so on the one hand, I might be saying, why God? If I said, why? That's chest. That was a pulled chest. Why God is more of a mix because I'm getting some of the head to come in and blend with that chest sound. Now, it's not, why God? It's not light. It's not breathy. Goo, 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 which we use in the exercises a lot to just connect the neck muscles from the vocal cords. But it's not serviceable. You can't go out and use it tomorrow night. The challenge you'll face, I almost guarantee, is that instead of saying, why God, why this face? You might learn that in a lesson, but when you get to the point where you have to do it in the song, on stage, in a performance, it's so easy to slip back into, why God, why this face? Because it's habit, and also because you feel like you're not getting the power. You feel like you don't have power in your voice like the other one does. And it might be true. It might be that narrowing of the vowel is you're just not able to bite into it as hard at first. So at first it might be a little less powerful. Why God, why this face? Because you don't know yet how to, it's not coordinated enough where you can really press into it. Why God, why this face? Why such beauty in this place? Of course, I'm also adding some low breath, and I'm really putting a lot of, I'm leaning into it pretty hard. I wouldn't say that that's my best mix, but it's better than just straight pull chest. And so the fast way to take care of what we're talking about is narrowing the vowel, not changing anything else, and pressing in fairly hard, pretty aggressive, taking my low breath, pulling my tummy in, but here's the challenge. There's sometimes more than one word you have to deal with. So, and maybe it goes up even higher on a different word, and now you're faced with narrowing a different vowel. And so that's what you're looking at. That's what you're faced with, because it's so easy to be in at one point, and so I think why, if I go back to why God, why this face, at the end it's something like, I think it ends on something to the effect of just her. And I can't remember if it ends on an F or a G, but I'm going to say just her. So now all of a sudden we've got another word, just her. And a lot of times the recording you're listening to, very open, very wide vowels, and a lot of chest pulling and so forth. So now the challenge is, what do you do on the higher notes on a different word? So you have to learn how to narrow the vowels to prevent from pulling chest and getting into more of that mixed. I'm going to hit just her on the G and just show you how by narrowing it I can at least get some of the abuse out of my voice and not lose too much power. Just her, just her. But that's different than just her. And it's a lot easier on my voice to find that mix. So a fast way to maintain power without changing much is by narrowing the vowel. But then you've got to work on every vowel, every offending vowel on every offending pitch. Anything in the bridge or above the bridge, and maybe a note or two below the bridge. You can get very open, very wide, and very pulley, very pulled chest. So that's number one. So to answer the question is, how do I get power in my singing voice quickly? Get power in the head voice. Learn to narrow the vowels. Number two is a longer approach, but and I think it's probably more effective. and that is to learn to do it without any, with release. So if I said, ma, 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 that's quite light at this point. Ma, 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 ma. Now, I'm not warmed up. I haven't done any vocalizing today. I've had a couple lessons that I've taught, but so that's not the optimal thing. But you can hear that I'm starting to get quite a bite, quite a cut in that sound. And the way I got to it, it took a number. Well, in my situation, it took a number of years to find out that I still had a little bit of a squeeze or a pinch, and that was not preventing the vocal cords to work effectively. And so one way to disassociate the extrinsic and the swallowing extrinsic neck and swallowing muscles that raises the larynx and squeezes the vocal cords is you can use this exercise. Goo, 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 goo. Goo, 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 goo. Goo, 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 goo. Now, you don't have there's not a lot of power in goo, 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 goo. But there isn't any strain or reach in goo, 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 goo. The reason why that's important is to begin to feel what it feels like to have a little bit of a release from tension. You could also use the same thing, only gee, 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 gee. Now that's not falsetto, that's just a light head voice without any reach or tension in it. Gee, 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 gee. And so, gee, 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 gee. Still going from chest through the bridge up into my head voice and back down, but no tension or no grabbing or reaching. Goo, 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 goo. But you say, I got to sing tomorrow night at my gig. I've got to, I can't use that voice in it. Probably not. You probably can't. And so it's just a longer development process to find release and then learn to press into the feeling of release. By that I mean, goo, 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 ma, 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 ma. Wait a minute, what was that? Did you hear that little ring ping in it? Ma, 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 ma. Where did that come from? Well, I think of it in two steps. Number one, let go, and immediately, as soon as I let go, press into the feeling of letting go. Ma, 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 ma. So let up and then press in, or release, or let go, or don't reach, or don't squeeze. Ma, 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 ma. Now, ma, 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 ma. If I press into the feeling of release, that's the closest way I can think of to describe what I'm doing. Step one, let up or let go, or don't squeeze, don't do it tight. And press into it, but don't press onto like the chord structure. Now, in other words, if I try and get it by grabbing hold of the vocal cords, it feels like I'm just doing it tight. Okay? if I so I kind of think of it like, rather than press into the vocal cords, I'm pressing into this to like resonance. I'm pressing into this feeling of the resonance in the voice. And I'm approaching it from the idea of like an acceleration of airflow past the vocal cords. That's Chuck Gilmore, chapter 3, verse 1. Okay, that's not anybody's idea but my own. And all it is, I'm just describing what I'm visualizing in my head, and it's probably mumbo jumbo to you because you don't feel it or sense it that way. So, but I'm just saying that it feels like I'm accelerating the airflow rather than grabbing a hold of the vocal cords and vibrating them, okay? So it's like I'm passing the air quickly over the vocal folds, or vocal cords, and somehow that enlivens them, it picks them up and gets the whole thing going. Ma, 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 ma. Now, if you notice, there wasn't a big difference in the quality of the tone. They all felt to me like they were very similar in the production, and to my ear, hearing it from the inside, it sounded quite similar also. Even though although I was descending in pitch, and so it doesn't have quite the effect on the ear. That's what I'm hearing. And so that's the second approach. I think, for me personally, I used the first approach for years just to get through my songs, to get cast in shows, and to do performing. And then the last 4 or 5 years, for me, having found this release and then press into the feeling of release, that's when I feel like I really picked up, are you ready for this? The lower notes, the C sharp, D sharp, or the E flat, even the E. For me, the most difficult notes are always like the E flat, E, even the D. It's just so hard to, because I always would, frankly, I would revert to just doing it in chest. And so it's always that area. What do I do? Do it in chest, or do I try and do it in mixed voice? But in mixed, it didn't feel that strong. It sounded a little different. But now, it's unified itself. The notes all sound the same, and I got to that personally myself by coming from the feeling of getting release without tension, and then being able to somehow accelerate the airflow and press into the feeling of release, press into the feeling of overlapping resonance, like chest and head resonance, press into the resonance rather than trying to grab a hold of the vocal cords and make a big sound. There's a lot of theory behind that. Probably there's a lot of people who, have disagreements with it. And I'm not saying this is representative of anything from any other person besides myself. That's just my experience, and I'm trying to vocalize what I'm trying to put into words what I feel, and that's so very challenging. I wish it was easier. Okay, well, I wish there were some ways here that I could. I'm trying to see where. I'm just pressing pressing my phone here. Okay, so there's a button here that says show live chat messages, and I'm not sure that I'm pushing the right button here. So I apologize if I'm not seeing your questions, and I apologize if you were on the other scheduled event waiting for me to come on, and you'll discover this after the fact. But I had a carpenter on the other side of the door hammering nails, and I just couldn't do the broadcast. So I hope that this has been interesting. I'm sorry that I couldn't address your questions today, or I'm not seeing your questions. I'm sure I'll get plenty of questions in comments, and I'll try and respond to those once this video is posted on YouTube. How long does it take to get to that? How long does it take? And I have to say it's different for everybody. It just depends on your gift. It depends on how ingrained your habits are. It depends on how aware you are of your own voice. It depends on how patient you are. That's the one thing that I see probably more than anything else, is that people don't have the patience to wait. Maybe they don't have the luxury of waiting. They've got to do the show. They've got to do their show tomorrow night, the next night, the next night. And the last thing you can do is change your swing, so to speak, right before the big tournament. So if you're like a big golfer and champion, and you just won you're right in the middle of the tournament, or you've got one coming up tomorrow, you don't change your swing today. You start working on your swing as soon as the tournament's over. So those are always just big challenges, to learn something new and implement it in your performance, and and do it in a week or the next day or in 2 weeks or whatever, because there's so many things you're fighting against. You're just fighting against old habits, and really, very ingrained habits that are subconscious. Don't even know you're doing them, and so it's hard to be a gigging artist that's busy and doing things, and then get a lesson and then go do it the next day. It's pretty impractical. It takes some time and takes some effort and some practice, and so that's why it's challenging, is because we run out of, and maybe it's not patience. Maybe it's just you don't have the luxury of working on it. But I think there are plenty of people who do that, but they realize that it's going to be gradual, and they might have to, they're going to maybe take some downtime between shows or gigs or whatever to work on it in earnest, and then practice the songs with new technique, so that you're really cementing new habits, new awareness, new feeling. Now here's the other issue that you might find, and I'll explain this. I've explained this in the past, and that is what you feel or what you're hearing isn't necessarily what the audience is hearing, because you're hearing something and feeling something that's new, because it's now resonating in a new place. Instead of pulled up chest, it's a split. There's some chest and head going at the same time, or maybe just actual connected head voice, and so it's going to sound differently. When that sound beam is traveling up from the vocal cords and hitting the hard palate, and you're just singing in chest, it gives this really brilliant, loud kind of sound. When the sound beam is traveling up and hitting the soft palate, where the sound starts to angle back and hit the upper soft palate, the back of the roof of your mouth, which is your soft palate, when the sound beam hits there, instead of being like this, which is what you get when you're in your chest voice, it sounds like this. And to us, we think, oh my gosh, that's way too weak. That doesn't feel strong. It doesn't sound strong to me. Well, it may be much stronger than you think. to the audience that's listening to you. So I recommend, this helped me, is to record it and listen to it. And even then, I think you're going to be biased. But begin to trust that what you're hearing and what the audience hearing are not the same thing. And especially on the higher notes, because of the pitch, it really interacts with the human ear in a much more powerful way when the pitch is higher. So it doesn't have to be loud for it to sound loud to us as an audience. So those are reasons why sometimes we get impatient, because we want it to feel and sound to us in our ear, in our sensation, exactly like pulled up chest did. And it doesn't. It sounds different and it feels different. But it doesn't necessarily sound weaker or unacceptable to the audience. The audience would be very strong, very powerful. So you've got to realize there's a difference in what you're experiencing and what you're hearing. Okay, enough said about that. Again, thank you for viewing this live broadcast. I'm doing this on my cell phone. I don't know if I explained that. This is a new offer that YouTube has now for channels that are over 10,000 subscribers. I'm over 12,000 now. Thank you very much. Very happy that you've subscribed. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take a moment and give it a thumbs up, and be sure and subscribe to to my YouTube channel. And someone asked me the other day, how can I be notified? And I think, so I read somewhere, I think that people that are subscribed get notified. But I also read that if you'll click on either the bell or the wheel next to the subscribe button, you can say, I want to be notified when a new video or a live broadcast comes out. So thanks again for joining me, and I'm Chuck Gilmore with Power to Sing. You can sing higher with beauty, confidence, and power. So I'll see you inside the next live broadcast or the next video. Thanks.